I just want to basically give a disclaimer right at the start. I'm an outsider to this industry, so I might ask a lot of noob questions, and I hope that they will be useful for some of the noobs here. But let's actually do a round of how many artists here? A raise of hands.
Rolling.
Okay, great. That's a good rule.
No.
How many of you use tech or depend on tech for creation, for distribution, for monetization? Okay, here's hoping that this will be a useful conversation for you all. I'm going to start with another outsider to the music industry, which is Rohit. And Rohit, from you, what I want to start with is what is the business logic behind the tech that we use? And how do independent artists sort of use that understanding to their advantage?
Check. Thanks, Shephali. That's a pretty loaded question, right? I think we live in very interesting times, right? We live in a world where social media is pretty much part of our lives, right? We are a product of our time. It is not that you can eliminate or isolate yourself. This is how we define our circumstance. We're also at a phase where Indian sound is really finding its voice, right? So, all in all, this is probably the best time to be independent music and also coming from the global south. Right? Having said that, I also believe that the market, music, streaming is now maturing. We're also sort of seeing some sort of unintended consequences that sort of are defining how our music culture is affected. So, to give you an example, right now you might hear a lot about how it is being flattened, right? What you're seeing right now is that in the past, when there's access to music, there's ownership to music, now come together at the same place, right? You're seeing a music artist when they go out to social media or any of these tech platforms and sharing their art, they're not just competing with other musicians, they're actually competing with any sort of artist and content that is out there, right? So again, your attention span, because it is now spread out in one place, right? Consumer or listener, you as a music artist has to fight for that attention with every other art, right? The third element of it is that musicians are now confronted with the fact that you are increasingly meeting a listener who is now more in tune to passive consumption, right? So, streaming tech right now seems to be becoming more model on a user behavior which is only very comfortable with playing press or skip. There is no deeper engagement with it. So, what we are coming to realize is that so many of the things that gave diversity, gave it variation, is now all come together thanks to tech. And that has a lot of different consequences of it, which we'll touch upon in this session. But yeah, I'll pause here at this point.
I was just wondering, Rohit is covering all of my next questions. When is he going to answer the question that I've asked him? Okay, I'm going to move on to Tanish now. Since amplifying is a part of your KRA and amplifying indie voices specifically, let's just talk about some of the tech tools that you think independent artists should definitely explore, know about to engage fans, to build a community and to monetize concerts and to also build a community around concerts particularly.
That's a very fully loaded question you just asked.
Am I asking loaded questions? What is this accusation?
It's a good question though. You already stole a few things I actually wanted to ask. We got a layer of how many artists actually out here. How many artists have released more than under 5 songs over here? Okay. How many of you have released more than 5 songs? Okay, so it's an even split right now. How many of you? I have some questions actually. Yeah. How many of you are making original content and making 6 to 8 posts on whatever in a month on whatever social media platform that would be? So not so many. So I would say, can I get a raise of hands to just get it clear? Okay, fine. How many of you have an email database? Okay, some people are not sure if they have or Okay. How many of you are writing on Substack, creating a community on that? Of course you are. Okay. How many of you, last question, have any friend, manager, or anybody as a freelancer or as a part of your team? Okay. So as I've asked these questions, the numbers have reduced in the number of hands that have been coming up, right? So we keep talking. We've actually had this discussion many times. Is that we keep talking about all these tools that are available for artists to use. There are actually a tool that is there at every level of what you need to do. It's about how you want to use them. Um, I don't want to go on the top end of the spectrum and talk about artists who have made it. What making it is very different. But let's talk about artists such as yours. Let's say at an average you'll have anywhere from 5 to 15 releases, right? That's the level of artists we kind of try to like to work with as well. And there are so many tools out there, and let's try to break it down a bit. Releasing music. One of the biggest challenges that artists have been facing is on two fronts when it comes to music. Is first of all completing the song. They have a lot of song music which is incomplete. And once they've completed the song, mixing and mastering has become very difficult for them to do because they don't have producers who they are constantly working with and can afford to pay those producers. So as a musician, you actually have a lot of platforms which are beginning to come up and crop up. You have to pay a small membership fee for it, which help you mix and master your track. Does this mean your track is going to be of a really great quality or level? No, but it helps it push it from maybe a 50% to maybe an 80% or a 90%, which is still better. So there are those kind of tools that exist out there for you to leverage. So I think, and then you can find a producer or something.
We also have a few names with each of these
I do actually. Yeah, I really like Landr, Landr, and Waves. These are my two platforms which I usually recommend. There's a lot more out there, but these are the ones that have been around for a while. They've got the algorithm better. They have a lot of machine learning capability, which has also come into play over there. So I think those are two platforms. But if you go look online, you'll be able to find a lot more of these things. And each platform has certain tweaks that you can do. Some of them you can give reference tracks. Like if you want to make a song sound like a particular track, you can upload these options and it'll help you come close to what you're looking at. So it has different tweaks that you can put in place as well for these kind of softwares. So that's one from releasing, mixing and mastering, so that you can then release music at least, right? Content. I mean, we keep talking about content, and it's being something that we need to keep putting all the time. But there are two good case studies that I'd like to present from artists who are doing stuff right now. And the idea is you choose what you want and what works for you. There are two artists who've come out in the last 2 years who have different growth trajectories. One is an artist called Sudan, and the second artist is Ginny. Vastly contrasting examples. Sudan has been slowly building an audience very organically through live performances, good quality music, and very tailored ways of reaching out to its audience. He's become quite in demand because his audience is asking him when he's playing next, but he's not playing it enough. On the other side, you have Ginny, who has absolutely gamified the whole social media space. She released music constantly as covers on social media, engaged with fans, commented on things on different people's posts, and really started building her audience. She went from 10,000 K followers to 680 something K followers in under 1.5 years. So that's a big jump.
That's only Instagram, or is it
Instagram, but it also translates somehow a little bit into a music listenership as well, right? But there's just two vastly different ways in which these artists have gone about social media growth. Sudan, on the other hand, is concentrating a lot of creating original media content for YouTube. So he's recorded with his bands music and songs in his videos in his studio. They've done unplugged sessions when they've gone to, I think, in the mountains somewhere, and done that with even Nexa. So he's used a different strategy, right? So the point about getting to content again is we have so many different formats of content that exist. You have Instagram, you have Shorts, you have Reels, you have a Substack, you have mailing lists, whatever. Figure out what are the one or two different things that you want to really concentrate on, and then build a community around that. Building a community sounds very, everybody talks about it, but there are actually ways to do it. And if you really just, instead of trying to feel like you're spreading yourself too thin, you actually can build your own micro community and start building your super fan engagement over there. I mean, I have a long list if you want me to continue.
I'm actually going to use your community point as a segue to come to Aniket. And Aniket, talk to us about some of the myths that one needs to dispel around building an audience versus a community, and how do you monetize these platforms that we spoke about?
Cool, thank you. And since everyone has asked me a question, I thought I'll also ask. We've spoken about how many of you are doing email, content, all of these things. How many of you feel overwhelmed that there's just too many things to do? And I think it comes down to that because there are two elements as most content creators or artists are facing. One is what you want to do and what you think you should do, which in a way sometimes the social media space kind of acts like a scary space where you see that, oh, people are doing 100 things, maybe I should do that, maybe I should do that, maybe I should do that also. But the point is that there are so many options, there's only a few things that you can probably be good at. So if you're building a Substack, focus on the Substack. If you're building content, you focus on the content. If you're doing something else, you focus on that and you kind of build a particular audience over there. Now the point of community versus audience, I'll give you an example from my previous job. We were working to build what we wanted to call a music industry community, where executives, artists, managers would share information and resources, which would build this sort of vibrant community that we had modeled on some more successful ones in the West. And we did that for about a year and a half. And what we realized was there were about 200, 250 people in this group, and only 4 or 5 of us who were sharing information and messages. And we were like, what's happening, what's going on over here? After a year and a half, we realized what we said we were doing was building a community, but what we were actually doing was building an audience. Because we went into this with an agenda. And that doesn't always translate, because a community usually comes together organically around a shared interest or passion or something like that. Coming to the point of direct to fan marketing, let's just call it within the bracket that it is, where you're meant to build your particular community, that becomes your super fan group that then you monetize. But it's also agenda driven. I want to find the group of people that are going to pay me the most amount of money and let me find and market my stuff to them, which again doesn't really work because it's not organic, right? So I think it's very important to understand the difference between building an audience and building a community. Community requires back and forth. It's not just a one-way traffic. So it also involves asking people what they would like to engage with. It involves taking feedback on. It involves letting people talk amongst themselves. So there's a lot more nuance when it comes to, I feel, direct-to-fan marketing that involves a lot more attention, which is difficult to do. It's not for everyone, right? Everyone is not a content machine. You're not going to be able to create one piece of amazing content per week, although it's what the algorithm says you should do. So taking all these kind of factors into account, yes, direct-to-fan is a great space to start building your career in, because the reality of the situation is that algorithms control a lot of the distribution, whether that's social media algorithms or whether that's DSP algorithms. You don't want to be stuck in a place where your business and your career is defined by another company's business objectives. So that's where building an email base comes into the picture. That's where direct community and direct communication with your audience that then becomes a community because you've given them something to care about. I think that's the crux of that myth busting key. You should build a community. It's not something that is a to-do list. It's great to have because it means that you'll be able to generate sustainable revenue and you'll be less dependent on other players in the ecosystem. But again, that takes a lot of attention, that takes a lot of effort, that takes a lot of investment.
investment that takes away from your music making, because you're also doing a little bit of project management, let's call it that. And when we talk about tech, when we talk about these tech tools, what we're effectively saying is, as independent artists, your strength is the ecosystem around you, whether that's collaborators that you work with, artists, producers, managers, if you're lucky enough to have one. And where you don't have those places and pieces sorted, there are tools like Tanish was mentioning that help you do what you want to do cheaper, faster, better, quicker. And it all comes from that starting point of what you want to do and not getting kind of sidelined with what you feel like you should do, which is very difficult. Easy for someone to say, difficult for you to sort of embody when there are so many conflicting interests, like how much money am I making this month?
Yeah. And you want to say something?
Well, so Aniket talked about, like, artists hopefully are not dependent on the commercial objectives of the companies that the tools, the technologies that they interact with. Today we actually have a very stark reality where we talk about how social media is the main way everybody discovers, right? But you're also seeing that there is no more unallocated attention span for consumers to now engage with more stuff, right? So you have that kind of a situation. You're also seeing that subscriber growth, paid subscriber growth, is going down across markets. Mature markets are actually witnessing slowdown of growth, which means that there's not enough money coming into the system to now share that with everybody. You're seeing that your margins are being eroded by different kinds of technological advancement that's coming. Everybody is taking that pie and spreading it out to a lot more places, right? The last person who gets paid up in that margin is the independent artist, right? So there is a dramatic slowdown in all the different trends that you want to see, where the growth of the independent artists and their compensation should be coming in, right? That is the reality of the situation. So how does one now sort of sit through where you're sort of locked into the technology platforms that you're a part of, and at that point the commercial objective of any of these platforms is yours to bear, right? Nobody's coming and saving you. Reality of also the situation is that artists are not organized to now put that forward. In some ways, I personally see that situation where independent artists are becoming rounding errors to the larger systems actually, right? That in its full entirety, if you give it that stretch out over a few years, I think that is pretty much negative to what I consider as a thriving music culture. There are some ways to look at it, right? Like today you will see there's a lot of money that goes into catalogs. There's a lot of M&A activity. Catalogs is your past, right? You're across the board. There's private equity firms coming in buying catalogs. So what does the independent artist do in this time, right? There is no new money coming to, let's say, venues or any other business models that allow you to diversify as an artist. If there is only one dominant revenue stream that exists, you're actually in not cahoots, but you're part of that ecosystem where you're stuck, right?
But let's actually talk about that, Rohit. What are the different revenue streams at this point? Because you also mentioned, he mentioned super fans, you mentioned how streaming has become very passive consumption. We also hear about lo-fis and covers and how that takes some of the royalty away from the artists. What are some of the new revenue models that independent artists could actually explore at this point?
So my flat answer is that go analog at this point, right? Go live, something like that. On a tech plan, yes. That we talked about would help you in that direction. But it starts from the point that there is actually only a pot of money that goes to all of these things. There is no infinite amount of money that can support everything, right? If today money goes to catalogs, money goes to all this stuff that is in the digital realm, your differentiator actually at that point becomes you move away from that, right? You want to build community, use digital tools, but try and get on the stage as much as possible, right? You will find your deepest artist fan connect actually happens on stage. Do you remember the last time or your first song that you saved on the streaming platform? No, but you remember a cassette that you bought or an artist or a band that you saw on stage. Clearly, that is the relationship that has sort of lost its touch in our time, right? So my suggestion would be that, find ways to go there. it's a very risky bet, right? Because what, you know, under the radar is somebody who represents artists, right? You can't go and tell an artist like, hey, demonetize it from the dominant revenue streams of the day, right? In search of emerging revenue streams. But that is sort of a question that artists are actively facing. Streaming is not growing as fast enough for them to sort of get compensated in the same way. And we have to sort of consider other options, and some of the stuff is actually, in my view, going analog. But I'll pause here and we get some more views in on this.
I actually want to add something to that because one would think that stage is an eventuality that will happen once the distribution is taken care of, right? So if any of you wants to take that up, talk about how tech is influencing the future of distribution in music, and so how does an independent artist navigate that?
How tech is affecting the future of distribution. I think distribution itself as a service, like we know at TuneCore, is fairly ingrained into every independent artist's life. This is how you get your music onto streaming platforms. What a lot of distribution companies also offer are label services, so marketing support, pitching support. But like we've covered, it's harder and harder to get noticed on these platforms. So distribution is a wide spectrum that not only includes getting your music onto streaming services, but it's just how do you get your music placed in multiple touch points in the audience career. So radio is part of distribution. Social media is part of distribution. Sync, TV, film, all of these are part of distribution. It's how many different ways can you get your music in front of different artists, in front of different audiences, in different contexts. And I think that comes down to communication. So some people do social media very well. There's loads of case studies and examples. I think one example is quite a famous one of Anuj Jain, who had during the pandemic just kept his Instagram live on, and he used to play songs to people who were tuning in the middle of the night, which is a way to distribute your music through social media. You can do sort of skits and various content pieces on Instagram. You can reach out to people, like distribute through networking. Reach out to as many people as you want, tell people about your music. You can, very random example, but go on to Marine Drive and play your music in front of people. That is a form of distribution. So when we say distribution, I think it's across the board. It depends on how you want to communicate the message of your music to as many people as possible. And it doesn't start and end with the fact that your music is on streaming services. The challenge, and it is definitely a challenge, is to continuously tell people about the music. And another part of social media is, again, it's difficult, is to constantly seem excited about the things that you're talking about. It's not easy for everyone to do, but there's different ways to try to do that. And if you want to get your music heard, and if you want to get your music to the places that you aspire, there are these kind of activities that are definitely required. Is it easy for anyone? No. Are there support systems? Yes, there's loads of support systems, not only like Amplify, but also just reaching out to your distributor, reaching out to people within your network, collaborating with other artists. Another form of distribution. Work with someone who makes music like yourself. You're reaching out to their audience by working with someone. So I would encourage people to think about distribution in multiple different ways. It's not just music on streaming services. It's getting music to people where they are.
Tanish, you want to add to the revenue model and the distribution both questions?
Yeah, going analog. I love analog. And again, I think Royden is here as well. We love live music, and there's some examples of people distributing music still through an analog means. Ankur Tiwari played a mall gig on World Music Day, busking, on the new platform called Busker, which is launched. He doesn't need to do that technically, right? He's doing Tiger Baby records, he's doing movies, he's got a big audience, but he is still out there playing shows for Aam Janta. It doesn't matter where his audience is going to come from, right? Peter Cat Recording Company is another example. They have constantly been building their audience over a period of time, and they're on their third US tour, but the first US tour they lost money, the second US tour they broke even, the third one they're making a lot of money. But how they've made money is not because of the ticketing revenue, but they've made money because of merchandise, right? So we keep talking about alternate revenue streams or what are the new revenue streams, but they've built such a nice niche audience or following and whatever brand that they've created for themselves. But people are buying their merch, and that's where the money is actually coming from. So, I mean, there are various examples that we can go about analog and revenue streams and distribution, but the way you talk about your music, even after 1 year of releasing your music, you have to promote it. It's not like just because you have a new release or a new song, you stop talking about the song that you created a year ago or 2 years ago. Your catalog has to keep living through you and not with the publishers or catalog owners, because that's the only way you will develop your audience base. So keep playing, keep talking about your music, and hopefully one day that one hit will happen for you.
There's also an element of surprise, I would say, here because you wouldn't expect every musician's merchandise to work as well as just one person's thing.
Add something to that. I feel like in India, finally, we have an audience base that is even open to buy merchandise. We did not have this before, and also because we have a lot of platforms that are creating direct merchandise on demand, and fans can, if you have a certain sort of template which is there online, like Canva has, fans can actually decide and design their own merchandise, and then basically an artist has to put zero investment and just tie up with this platform and still able to sell merchandise. But I feel like artists should try to start building on that, because that is actually where the margins are going to be for them.
Yeah, and I guess it ties back to building a community and distribution, and then basically having a community strong enough that would want to buy that merchandise. I also want to talk to you all about streaming fraud and how basically can an independent artist protect themselves. What are kind of streaming frauds out there, and how does an independent artist protect themselves from it?
Okay, so I take that. I think streaming fraud is a growing area of concern for the wider music industry, and how that affects independent artists is through the lure of third-party playlisting. That's a big kind of not black box, but it's a confusing space for people. A lot of people might offer you, hey, you pay us 30,000, we'll get you onto a playlist that will get you 100,000 streams within the first month. You'll be placed on the top three and stuff like that. There's a lot of streaming fraud that happens in terms of bot activity. Not only fake playlists, but it's a connected ecosystem. So now you are distributing your music through someone like a TuneCore. It's available on Spotify. Some random person who's running a playlist company or a playlist farm, for that matter, may offer you, hey, I'll get you your streams within your first month. Now, if that is a fraud or a bot farmed stream playlist, Spotify may have the tools and technologies to identify that, devalue your streams, pull up your distributor, and then you might get blocked as an artist distributing. Sometimes you may not even know that that's a fake streaming playlist that's been sold to you. So a little bit of vetting is very important for independent artists. When someone comes and tells you, I can get you so many plays, they're definitely lying to you. That's not possible. No one is going to be able to guarantee you how many plays you're going to get. And if they are, then that's most likely a scam. But the challenge is, because it's so difficult to navigate this space, if someone gives you a shiny solution, most people tend to jump on it. Even industry executives will tend to jump on that. But the thing to keep in mind is to always vet where these sources come from, so that you're not opening yourself up for risk at some other point. Another very sophisticated form of streaming fraud that happens. And just a little bit of context, why does streaming fraud happen? It's a lot of black money that is being converted into white money as well. So it's not necessarily people who are just trying to grow their
Can you elaborate on that?
So, like a company that is trying to convert black money into white money by paying for streams on a fake artist, generating royalties, and then getting paid royalty revenue. So that may be a bit more sophisticated way of doing streaming fraud. But somehow, sometimes these fraudsters have found sophisticated ways to get streams onto not only their artists but to other artists as well. So let's say I am someone who got this idea of doing streaming fraud. I've created a fake artist profile, and I'm getting, let's say, 100,000 streams on this artist profile. I don't want to get caught by Spotify. So I'm also going to generate 5,000 streams for another artist, 10,000 streams for another artist. And that way, people's who are getting organic streams may have a certain number of fake streams. Their streams might suddenly be reduced at the end of the month, by Spotify. They'll hear the distributor saying that I've not paid anyone for this playlist. Why are my streams getting reduced? So it's a very complex ecosystem. Just generally to be aware, if you're reaching out to third-party playlists, which is a very common practice, always vet where those playlists are coming from, where those sources are coming from, so that you don't necessarily open yourself up to liability at a later date. It's a bit more of a deeper problem. It's not something that is again in control, of your everyday independent artist. But the point being, know who you're working with and trust who you're working with.
I would reserve my thoughts on this because I don't know enough. But Tanish,
Let's talk about AI, shall we? Okay, so let's actually hear all of you on this. In a world that is increasingly going to be filled, is already getting filled with AI generated music, how does an independent artist carve their own space?
So I've been getting this thought, whatever, on Instagram a lot recently. Create like a child, edit like a scientist, right? And that's when you can actually build on something very good. I've been using a lot of Chat GPT for various reasons. I would like to know how many artists are using any of the Chat GPT, like the GPT models, to help you create any plans, any kind of plans and structures, right? Cool. So we go back to create like an art, create like a child. Use first, let's say we're using Chat GPT to create a plan for yourself, release strategy. Create a framework that you think works. You may not know the answers, but just create it and put the prompt into Chat GPT. It'll give you a template. But how I always advise artists to use the template, because most of artists don't even read what it comes up. They just copy paste and they follow this blindly. Please use your brain and use just some common knowledge of how you can go about editing the plan that is being given to you to use it for your advantage. It's a tool that exists. So use it, work smarter, work harder, but also edit. So I think whatever tools there are going to be from any of the AI generated frameworks that come out, not only from a Chat GPT and manager perspective, but maybe from a music generation perspective or direct to fan audience engagement perspective or whatever, use your brain. And editing is going to be the next skill that you need to hone after you use these tools. So that's my thought on AI and how artists can leverage whatever tools that they may. I'm not going to go into specifics, but start thinking and editing like a scientist of whatever comes out of it at the end to really suit your needs.
yeah. So I mean, this is a paradigm shift that we're seeing right now, right? I'll first frame the thing as, can we differentiate between what is generated and what is assisted, right? What Tanish has talked about is a lot of assisted-based stuff, which I think is good. AI will be part of our lives. We cannot ignore it. It will become bigger, so on and so forth. The generative side is a bit complex, because there are not just ethical questions, but there is a real risk of reducing what I think is the value of music. So like Sinha, I'm just giving a very reductive. But AI music actually takes the cost of producing music very low. It reduces that number, right? Now it's hard enough to be an independent artist and make a sustainable living out of it. So when you put AI in the mix, that actually makes it double hard, because you are not even competing with a human. And they will be faster, better, right? So that's the real risk. It pushes down the value of music, and that makes it much harder for independents to survive on this. Second aspect here is the fact that there is a speed of algorithmic push that is unprecedented at this point in time. This is a larger impact on culture that we will see only 10 years later, right? So, if I had to put a hypothetical situation 20 years from now, would I be excited at AI avatar, AI artists getting together for a reunion tour in 20 years from now? Unlikely. But I would like to see a OSS version 20 years now to come and see them perform. But when you when you are now putting at risk at human-led creativity because it's so quick, right? You might even lose a generation of music artists, potential music artists who want to participate in the fact in this ecosystem because AI music isn't run at that place. So you're actually losing culture more than just the fact that there's new technology coming in. I personally see that as a big risk, and I would like some balance in this scenario. Like human-led creativity should be the fundamental driver of culture, not machine-led creativity. So I'm a bit apprehensive about this thing. It will exist. I'm not going to say like good old days is the best time to be and we should bring that back. But I think there is some sense of discomfort that exists. We have some uncomfortable questions to grapple with in the near future. So that's what I think about AI music. It's a pretty risky territory where we don't know the outcomes on this in 10 years, 20 years.
But I guess you captured it very well, right? Like, look around us, all the creativity that we see has been assisted by some of the other machines. You know? So I guess the generative AI versus assistive AI is, I think, where.
Yeah, and this brings in like platform power very front and center in all of this, right? Like, sure, you might, as a regular consumer, maybe I generate sound, put that music out there, but I'm one person, right? Platforms or bigger companies can actually do the same and take away that same pie that I was talking about, is thinking, right? There is no cost to be borne at the fact you're just running a machine at the end of the day. That that takes away a lot from the ecosystem where this is a collaborative thing. There's a lot many players in this place. And you just push something out that sort of replaces all of that. And there is a commercial rationale for companies to do that. Why wouldn't they do that? It is a paradigm shift. It is a technology is not different from magic right now. Why wouldn't any company want to bring that on in their portfolio? If I was anybody like that, I would be doing the same thing. But culture is really affected. So where do we sort of sit between this tension that is really coming out? But yeah, AI is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. We just need to find a better balance.
I think the message over here for a lot of independent artists is to be active participants in whatever activity that you're engaging with, as opposed to a passive participant in what the platforms want us to do. And what does that mean? So let's just talk about distribution and publishing. Those are your two main activities when you're protecting your copyright and you're protecting your intellectual property. So let's say, I'm just going to assume, maybe you can give some feedback. When you're distributing your music through a TuneCore, how many of you fill all the fields of information that are required when it comes to the metadata for distribution? All of the fields. Fantastic. And how many of you are registered with IPRS or something? Okay. And every time you release a song, are you registering your metadata with these PROs? Okay, so that is a lower amount. I think that is also a little bit of confusion and education that's required, which is when you distribute your music, you know that every time a stream happens, you're getting paid on a monthly basis. But when it comes to registering your publishing, just being registered as a member of the PRO is not enough. You have to actively register each song so that the collective management system globally knows who to pay when there is utilization of your works. Now, when it comes to the concept of AI, I think this becomes the cornerstone element, is protecting all parts of your intellectual property, making sure that all of your contributions are properly accounted for, whether those are collaboration splits, you have the right split sheets, even if that's a message, even if that's an email, making sure that all of your metadata trails are accurately captured, so that later, when there is a little bit more exploitation with AI platforms, so to speak, your Sunos, videos, and the other platforms that are to come, there are regulations that are being put in place as to should these platforms, be licensed, or should they have a free-handed music that is put in. When these regulations come into place and when there are business models around it, you as independent artists should be protected, and that protection comes from having a proper trail of your own metadata, and that comes down to how involved you are. So whether you're working with a manager, it's the manager's job to make sure that this full trail is taken care of, your contracts are in place, your agreements are in place, you understand your rights, you understand how and where your music is being used, and therefore how and how much you are owed as part of that use. Now, whether it's streaming, whether it's analog, digital, AI, it all comes down to that fact that people are going to track usage. They're going to see who has contributed how much, and therefore how much money is owed to this person. That's the bare minimum that every artist should be taking care of and should be concerned with.
This is super helpful and forensic. I've been told we have just 5 more minutes, but I really want to ask this one last question of the panel. How can an independent artist at this point use technology and its many gifts to become an active stakeholder of the industry and not just to participate? Whoever wants to go first.
I think, yeah, the messaging is being an active participant. With tech platforms, everyone is listening. So if you have feedback about a tool or some kind of process that you have used, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, communicate. Either communicate to the platform that you're using or you put a message out on social media. Someone somewhere is going to listen to that message. And tech platforms thrive from user feedback. They're going to iterate based on what they know. You are the users, so you are going to be the ones that are effectively dictating the path for these tech platforms. And I think just being a participant and being an active participant and using your voice is very important when it comes to this element, as opposed to trying to keep up. Of course, there will be an element of trying to keep up because no one is going to be able to keep track of Instagram's latest change, Spotify's latest change. But if you are talking about your own experience as an artist, what you would like to see, someone somewhere is going to build a solution for that, and then that's where you found your tribe. So I would say try to be as active as possible and not be a passive participant in whatever space you're choosing to participate
Right.
Yeah, so building off what Aniket said, I think it's some of the good old stuff about music culture that sort of needs to come back in, right? Not to say that technology cannot help you. Actually, you can use technology to build new scaffoldings for artist discovery and cultural engagement. To think that there is only one way to put your music out, which maybe in this case the dominant one is streaming, is actually you yourself are limiting yourself. There is a certain default that kicks in that yeah, I can produce music, put it on streaming platforms, and I'm done here. But there's a whole bunch of things that Tanish talked about. He runs amplifying, he knows how hard it is to put that together. But that's where the fun is. And like if you are able to get that going for yourself, use the tools and technology that we've just talked about in this room. I think that might be a very exciting prospect of how you build your following, your community, so on and so forth. So that's what I'll leave the audience.
While we were talking, it just dawned on me that millennials are the ones who have this question about how is it going to change and what is it going to impact us and all. But a lot of the artists who we worked with in the last 7 cohorts of Amplify have been around 22 to 24, so Gen Zs. They don't give a shit. They are on those platforms before you know it. They don't think about album artwork being a generative album artwork. They will use it, they'll put it out, they'll experiment, they'll see. So my only advice here is to anybody, just use these platforms, experiment with them, play with it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay, you move on. But at least you're not falling behind the curve of then having to catch up maybe 4 5 years later when it might be a bit too late for you. So when you do hear of a platform, go check it out, go look at the website, go look at that, play around with it, and see if it suits you or not. Just because we've had platforms like Asana, Notion, etc., etc. Everything works. A particular tool works for a particular person. So just go out there, try, experiment, and see. Just like a distribution service works for somebody, it doesn't work for somebody else. It's just the same thing. But Gen Zs love tech and they use it without thinking.
Okay, I have to admit, as an outsider to this world, I've come out learning a lot. I really hope some of this was useful to you all as well. I just want to conclude by saying 3 big takeaways, at least for me, that have been: just watch out for third-party playlists and look out for who you're collaborating with, who you're working with. Create like a child and edit like a scientist. And I think the headline would be go analog. Are we doing questions? Okay. Okay, we have time for 2 questions. Yes.
Hi. So I'm an independent musician and filmmaker. And I have a couple of releases out. In the last one, I had a question based on my previous experience, which is in the last release, I spent like a lot of my money to make a music video. And how happy I am with the response and the traction that I got through it. I feel like there's a cycle of like earning money with what you do for work and sort of like reinvesting that money into producing, recording your song or making the music video is expensive. At what point do we break out of this cycle and keep those earnings for ourselves and maybe have some other approach or way to like have someone else fund that for you? Either that be a music label or sponsorship. I don't know. So if you could talk about that.
That's the age-old question every artist asks. Um, there is no, unfortunately, an end to that cycle. That cycle just gets, the scale of the cycle just increases the more you grow as an artist, because it's your business at the end of the day. If you don't invest in your own business, your business will not grow. It's the same thing that works from an artist perspective as well. You may make a certain amount of revenue, whatever that may be, but in order for you to make better music videos, style yourself better, whatever it may be, or get that producer who you want to work with and pay them that money to work on your track, that investment doesn't end, right? But as an independent artist, um, if you can substantiate a way to maybe develop revenue from other alternate means and alternate revenue streams by music itself, and there are many other ways to do it. Sometimes it's also beneficial to tap into that creative aspect of what it is to be an artist. So I'm just going to throw some stuff out, and I don't know what sticks right now, but there are a lot of artists who work in the music industry as freelancers. They do voiceovers, they do private gigs, they do production, and a lot of the music comes from, a lot of the revenue comes from alternate revenue streams as well. So you will always, as an artist, also have to develop those revenue streams. Sure, a label may come and fund a single or an EP or an album, but just because they fund it, that doesn't mean that you don't have to pay them back. You still have to pay them back. It comes through different ways. So just because they've given you money doesn't mean that your life and your career is set. It's just that you have to work equally hard to pay them back, pay that money back, and so then you can start earning revenue. So unfortunately, your hustle never ends, but it's a hustle you choose to sign up for, and it's okay. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, just to add to what Tanish said, I think you have to see yourself as an entrepreneur. I think one of the panelists did say that see, art comes front and center to an artist. Sometimes we close ourselves to the realities of being an artist. And so don't think of the fact that, okay, I'm earning something and that's the cycle that continues, but actually think of it as a business. You're managing a P&L, right? There are some revenue streams that you do for commercial work, some you do for your art and passion. And find that balance that makes it sustainable for you. Oftentimes, I also think that people think that you just go hard on just one thing, and then the payoffs don't come, and then you're sort of stuck in that. Right? I think building a sustainable music career actually needs time. Good things take time, right? Creating meaning takes time. So if you want to bring that community along with you, it's not a release that is, it's a whole bunch of things that you do that comes together, and over time you start reaping the benefits. But think of it as a slow journey that you will do, and keep it manageable for you so that you don't burn out. It's a very hard industry. There is no support or benefits to artists that you get. Pretty practically a gig economy at this point. So keep it easy for yourself, move in a pace that works for you, keep your creative core at the center, find balance with different revenue streams, and get out on stage.
Yeah, I think covered it pretty well when it comes to the P&L, but it's down to your requirements and your vision, right? Like if you're taking care of your family, if you're building some savings, of course you can't take away from that and put it into the next music video. So it depends on what you need to, for yourself in your life. I think that is important. And then with the money that you have to invest in a creative project, what is the smartest way to use that purpose to achieve your vision? I think when you're probably starting out, then you're working with a small budget and you're matching your vision to the budget to say, how am I going to achieve the closest possible approximation with the money that I have? So you have, let's say, a music video. You have a song coming out, and you can either put out a music video or you can put out 10 pieces of content. It may not be as per your vision to put out 10 pieces of content, but it's probably going to get you the best distribution on it. But if you're the kind of person who says that this is my creative vision, it has to be a music video, then that's what it has to be. So it really depends on, I think, finding what your requirement is, finding your vision, and then hopefully you get to the point where you're like, this is my vision, and I have enough to, fund it.
Can I just add to that? Something I like to tell artists is think of it from a P&L and a creative perspective, but when you're making a decision, always think about it, is this a creative decision or a business decision? If you break it down into these formats, hopefully your decision making will get a little easier.
Thank you so much. We don't have time for another question actually. So, should I
Take it offline.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you have any questions, we can definitely take it offline. But we need to get to the next panel. So, maybe some other time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.